Busch Gardens Tampa is a park that has so many strengths. From the rides to the shows to the animals and everything in between, this park is just fantastic. Every year the park is dedicated to adding something new for guests to enjoy, and it usually never disappoints. But I'm sure you guys are only watching this video for one reason: the coasters. In this video we're going to try to answer the question of, is Busch Gardens Tampa getting a coaster in 2024, and if so, what exactly is it going to be? So right off the bat, I want to let you guys know that I am in the camp that says they are going to get some type of coaster in 2024. However, that is not a very difficult prediction to make, considering the fact that there are already plenty of rumors already circulating for the other parks in the SeaWorld chain. I mean, SeaWorld Orlando already has some pretty substantial construction for their Antarctica coaster next year, so it's not news to anyone that Busch Gardens Tampa could be planning a coaster as well. So what other things make me think this? A while ago, there was a rumor that Busch Gardens could possibly be removing Sand Serpent to make way for a new coaster addition, and many of us predicted this to be happening around summer of this year. Well, lo and behold, on June 15th, they announced that the ride will indeed be closing permanently as of July. This yet again points to a brand new coaster or attraction coming in its spot next year. It's also worth mentioning that they finally removed the Phoenix, which was standing SB&O for a very long time. So this all points to a new coaster being added in the Pantopia section of the park in 2024. So what else do we know about this project? Well, as of now, we only have the approximate location of the attraction. However, this could give us more clues to what it is by looking at the size. So let's dive right in. The first thing we're going to do is to take a look at the plot of land that they could be working with. But right now, I'm going to assume it is only in the Pantopia section, as they are removing Sand Serpent to make room for it. So on first glance, one of the first things you will notice is that the plot of land itself isn't very big at all. So if they are merely sticking to only the plot of land outlined, it narrows down the options quite a bit. So what coasters could fit in the outline section? Well, if we are talking about family coasters, we truly have a lot of options. The boring route would be to, of course, add yet again another Intamin family straddle coaster. However, I have a problem with this. I highly doubt that Busch Gardens would add the same type of attraction as SeaWorld Orlando in the same year. Considering the fact that they were only an hour away from each other, it doesn't seem very likely that this would happen. So if SeaWorld Orlando is getting a family straddle coaster in 2024, I highly doubt that Busch would do the same in the same year. This would be very different if they were different years, but it is not. Two family coasters I could see working would be a Vekoma family boomerang. These things are very popular right now, and some type of family Intamin launch coaster other than a straddle coaster, but we will get back to that in a second. So in all seriousness, let's move away from the family coasters for right now, because I'm not entirely positive that that's what we are getting. A lot of coaster enthusiasts are dead set on that, but I don't necessarily think so. Unlike a lot of enthusiasts, I'm in the camp that thinks a thrill coaster is definitely possible. Fans of this channel may remember that my original long-time prediction for this area would be some type of Gerstlauer Infinity coaster like Mystic or even Palindrome. This thing would have similar capacity to the Wild Mouse, so that wouldn't really even be a problem. Gerstlauer Infinity coasters are very competitively priced in the market, so that makes them kind of affordable. So even though I think this coaster would be a perfect fit in terms of budget and size, there is zero evidence to suggest that this is what they are getting. But I think it would be good. Now, when everyone thinks of compact coasters, I know most people usually think of the RMC Raptor clones, and yet again this would fit very nicely in the plot of land. But we need to think, would Busch Gardens Tampa realistically add an RMC Raptor? Well, we know they've worked with RMC in the past with Iron Gwazi, but I'm still not convinced that a Raptor is what they are planning on. If you look at the recent additions over the years from the various parks, one company sticks out, and that is of course Intamin. They just finished up doing Dark Coaster at Beach W, Arctic Rescue at SeaWorld San Diego, and Catapult Falls at SeaWorld San Antonio. And let's not forget Pantheon at Busch Gardens Williamsburg. The company is seriously solidifying their partnership with SeaWorld Entertainment, so I think it's only fitting for us to consider the fact that this coaster has a pretty good chance of being by Intamin. So what Intamin coasters could possibly fit in the highlighted area? Like we mentioned earlier, the straddle coaster is definitely a possibility, and whatever it is, I can almost guarantee you if it's a coaster, it's going to have a launch. Intamin loves launch coasters, and SeaWorld is obsessed with them, so it's like a match made in heaven. Other Intamin launch coasters include their multi-dimensional coaster, which is usually heavily themed, and the Hot Racer, which, well, isn't likely, and some type of LSM coasters. A ride like Pantheon would be pretty cool at this Busch Gardens, but it's super redundant with all the other Florida parks. I mean, we have Velocicoaster literally right down the road. So, I don't know what they would go for. Honestly, I'd originally say the straddle coaster. However, if the SeaWorld Orlando Antarctica coaster is a straddle coaster, that definitely makes me think otherwise, and only time will tell. Another option that I've been hearing thrown around was a B&M wing coaster. Right now, there are no B&M wing coasters in the state of Florida, and originally people thought that that's what Pipeline was going to be, and obviously that ended up being the surf coaster. So what happens if we mix the family rumors with a long shot theory of a B&M wing coaster? Well, we get something that's actually pretty popular right now, a compact B&M family wing coaster. Recently, one of the Legolands added a family B&M wing coaster that actually includes inversions. So that's just pretty weird. But more specifically, the one I'm referring to is Chessington World of Adventures opened up their Jumanji coaster, Mandrill Mayhem, which is a compact B&M shuttle wing coaster. Could this really work at Busch Gardens? Well, I think it's definitely possible. If Legoland can add a B&M wing coaster, Busch Gardens certainly can. So I actually think it's a decently plausible prediction. I could totally see Busch Gardens adding a B&M wing shuttle coaster similar to Mandrill Mayhem in that section of the park. So this is certainly an interesting thought. But now I want to touch on the big elephant in the room. And this is the theory that you hear all the enthusiasts saying that they really want, but honestly it's just wishful thinking. And that is the park going to finally add a Giga or a Hyper coaster? And the answer to that is, I don't think so. At least not this year. Hypers and Giga coasters take significantly longer to plan and build. So I think if we were going to see one, we would have already started to see construction by now. Also, if they were going to build a Giga coaster, it would require special zoning and statutory exemptions from the government considering the height limit that Busch Gardens has. And we definitely would have seen more public documents by now. But just for fun, I did want to see if a hypercoaster could fit in the land that Busch Gardens has to work with. In this image, you can see where I think one could possibly fit, however, it would shorten the Serengeti quite a bit. I personally would throw out the rumor of a Hyper and Giga coaster to be honest, because it just doesn't seem plausible at the moment. And plus, there are even better places in the park to put the coaster than this, which wouldn't require the removal of Sand Serpent. But who knows, I could be wrong, and I have been wrong before. Finally, there is this one long shot theory that I want to touch on. So is the park going to convert the indoor Pantopia Theater to an indoor coaster section? The park has something very similar to Busch Gardens Williamsburg going on. They have this big building and it's never used to its full extent. Busch Gardens had the Dark Castle building for such a long time until they finally decided to put Dark Coaster in it. Busch Gardens Tampa has something very similar. The Pantopia Theater isn't used that much to be honest. They already have 2 other theaters, so this one could really go. Not to mention the fact that SeaWorld Orlando is also doing the same thing with the Empire of the Penguin building. Personally, I think this would be pretty cool if they managed to add some type of indoor coaster. Especially since the theater isn't used as much as it should be lately, I think this is definitely possible, but not super likely. They could use a theater in combination with Sand Serpent's plot of land to create a pretty decent attraction. They could use the theater for an indoor portion of the coaster, which would be very intriguing to see, and Sand Serpent's section for an outdoor section. This park desperately needs an indoor attraction, so that yet again adds a hint of credibility to this super long shot rumor. An indoor straddle coaster is way better than an outdoor straddle coaster, so I think that would be pretty cool. But also something like an Intamin multi-dimensional coaster would be even better. So here are my final predictions of what I think we will be getting in 2024. Granted, this is purely speculation, but out of all the coasters, I think these have the best chance. My first prediction is, like I mentioned earlier, if we are getting a thrill coaster, I would say a Gerstlauer Infinity coaster with a vertical lift or a launch would fit very nicely. I think the vertical lift would be a little bit more likely than the launch because Busch Gardens already has quite a few launch coasters, but who knows, SeaWorld definitely loves launches. This ride could easily fit in the plot of Land by Sand Serpent and Phoenix, and it wouldn't break the bank. This is honestly what I'm hoping for, but right now that is just wishful thinking. Now going the half family, half thrill route, I would say the B&M winged shuttle coaster like Mandrill Mayhem isn't out of the question. I think it would honestly be a pretty great fit. I believe the codename for this project has led people to speculate about the B&M wing coaster, but the more I think about a family winged shuttle coaster, I think it would fit very nicely. I think this is being slept on by enthusiasts. And lastly, if they end up going the family route, I definitely think something by Intamin would be the most likely. But it's very difficult to figure out what it's going to be. I honestly can't see Busch Gardens and SeaWorld getting a straddle coaster in the same year, which is why one of them will most likely be getting a straddle coaster and the other will not. Now with that being said, I'm going to say something pretty controversial. Hold up. Are we really sure that SeaWorld Orlando is getting a straddle coaster next year? I mean, if you look at these site plans, it shows 9 or 8 air gates with a relatively small station loading platform. Straddle coasters are known to have these wide, long cars, which usually resemble jet skis or motorbikes, but the point is they are long and wide. And it honestly doesn't look like they would fit with these site plans if they are drawn to scale. So maybe, just maybe, Busch Gardens would get a straddle coaster and SeaWorld Orlando could be the one getting something else. But that's for another video. So in conclusion, those are my thoughts on Busch Gardens Tampa's 2024 attraction. I'd say they are definitely going to get a coaster, and I would be very surprised if it wasn't one of the ones I mentioned. But whatever it ends up being, I am still super excited to ride it, and I cannot wait until they announce what it is. This is the Coaster Josh, signing out. Thank you all so much for watching.